Hi, welcome to Senior Moment, Successful Aging. I'm your host, Mary Beals-Luedtka. I'm the director for the Area Agency on Aging at NACOG, and this show comes to you sponsored by the Area Agency on Aging and the Division of Lifelong Learning at Yavapai College. And our producer is Danny Tomerlin, and you can call Danny at 717-7755. Maybe you have suggestions about shows you'd like to see in the future, or you have questions about today's show. Give Danny a call and let her know, and she'll be able to ask your questions. But if you have questions about aging, the Area Agency on Aging has answers, and you can call us toll free at 877-521-3500. Today's guest is James Fitzpatrick. Hi, James.
How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you again.
Good seeing you.
Yes, I'm really excited that you're here today. You're the Program and Advocacy Director for the Alzheimer's Association. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's a long title. It's longer than mine.
It is a long title.
It is a long title.
It's a tongue twister.
So let's go back in time a little bit.
Okay.
You were mentioning to me, how did you start your career?
I actually started it in child development. I have a bachelor's in sociology and a bachelor's in family and human development. And I actually started working with children with developmental disabilities. And it just progressed on from there. I got my master's in mental health. And I used to run a domestic violence shelter, and something that we noticed as time went on, that we weren't providing senior services. We were getting a lot of single elderly women, and their abusers were not their romantic partners, and a lot of our services were more garnered towards intimate partner relationships.
Right.
And their abusers were their children, it was their grandchildren. And a group of women came to me. At the time, I was the program manager, so I ran all of our services on 3 of our campuses. Well, we had 3 campuses. And at the time, it was the largest domestic violence shelter in the Southwest, and it's located in Phoenix. I don't know what it is now because it's been a couple years.
Yeah.
And I remember these women came to me and they're like, "You are not providing us services." And I was like, "You are 100% correct." So I started going to as many workshops as I could, conferences, anything that I could find, because I didn't know geriatric services. You can learn anything that you want to learn as long as you have a passion.
Yes.
And somehow, I don't know what I clicked on when I was doing a Google search, and I came across the Alzheimer's Association. My grandmother had passed away several years prior of dementia. She never got an actual diagnosis of a specific disease, but she did get the dementia diagnosis. And I just happened to look at the careers, and I was like, well, I oversee programs. Their programs are fairly consistent to what we do. I have no geriatric experience. I have no dementia experience, but I know the brain. Why not apply? 2 weeks later, I had the job. So,
How long ago was that?
little over 2 years.
So
Yeah.
So you are now assimilated into the system.
I am now assimilated into the system.
So a lot of folks don't know what the Alzheimer's Association even does and what they're about.
So we are the largest organization in the, I'm going to say the world, but in general the United States, that provides dementia supportive services. That is one of our biggest areas overall. Here in Arizona, I work for the Desert Southwest chapter. My chapter is all of Arizona as well as Southern Nevada. We are one of the largest chapters in the country, so a lot of service area. One of our key, we have 6 common programs. The first one is the helpline. So anytime, anywhere you are in the country, if you need support, you just call up our 800 number and you will talk to a live social worker.
What is it?
1-800-272-3900.
Okay.
So it's literally like, it can be anything from information and referral to, I just saw my mother at Christmas and something was a little off.
Yeah.
I live in New York, she lives in Prescott, and I just have some questions. And then we have care consultation, which is case management. We do education, support groups, early stage programming, which in general, early stage programming isn't new, but early stage diagnosis. We really want to focus on people that have the disease to get diagnosed. And that's not happening. Less than 48% of people with Alzheimer's or dementia get a diagnosis.
Do you think that's just, is it fear? is it denial? I mean, I know from my own family, I had to push them to get an early diagnosis from my mother.
I don't know. And, to speculate, in my family with my grandmother, it wasn't talked about. My grandmother was always kind of kooky to begin with.
Yeah.
My grandparents my dad moved to Arizona when I was in my early 20s, and then I followed to finish college. And my grandparents always lived close by, and then they lived across the street. So my grandmother was always kind of interesting, and then it just got more and more and more. I never saw it. I was just always like, it's grandma. Whereas my dad and my grandfather were like, there's definitely something. And then when my aunts and uncles and my sister and my cousins would come out, they would always say, well, grandma did this, grandma did this. Now knowing what I know, she didn't have Alzheimer's. I would probably say she had frontal temporal.
Gotcha.
But it was definitely interesting because we didn't talk about it. Yeah. They would like make comments, and it was kind of like their comfort level.
Yeah.
Of like, let's brush this under the table, but let's make like snarky comments. And for me, it was like, but it's grandma.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Jumped 10 years later when I started working at the Alzheimer's Association. It was, all right, let me like learn as much about this as possible. And I want to say, I think 4 or 5 months after, because my dad retired in Ecuador. 4 or 5 months after, my dad came to the United States to visit. And like he still won't like engage about it. And it's interesting because we talk about early stage diagnosis, and with less than 48% of people getting it, I don't know if it's a physician thing, if physicians don't have the knowledge to do it, because you don't need to have a brain scan, or the misnomer of, oh, we have to wait till somebody dies so you can actually do an autopsy on the brain.
I hear that all the time.
That's not true. I don't know. The common denominator you will hear, it's 65 and older. People are getting diagnosed under the age of 65. Yeah. What is the common, or the big thing is, oh, well, is it genetic? Is it this? Is it that? Yes, the common denominator to get Alzheimer's, the common denominator to get dementia, you need to have a brain.
Okay.
That's it.
And we all have one.
Yeah.
Or we wouldn't be sitting here.
We want people to get the diagnosis. We want early stage, because if I have dementia and you're my care partner or my caregiver, we want to be able to start planning for the future. We want to educate. We want to know what's going to happen while I still have the ability to make those decisions. And that's not always happening. It's not until like middle or late stage when it's like somebody gets a diagnosis. And it's, I want to say, if you just have Alzheimer's and no other comorbidity, no other disease, it could be 5 to 20 years. The thing is that Alzheimer's is, you will die from the disease.
Yes.
And it's not a easy death. No. It's progressive, and to say that people don't get a diagnosis could be like their own individuality, individual selves not wanting to go. It could be like their physicians not pushing it because they might have something else, and hopefully that will get them before the Alzheimer's.
Right. So awareness. Awareness. I mean, and that's part of what you do.
Yes.
Is raise awareness, and thank goodness I'm in the business. When my mother I went, because I'm far away, and I went home and I noticed these marked changes, and they're like, no, she's fine. I'm like, no, she's not. And we got a talking stick, and we did the because I have a very volatile, crazy, loud family, and we finally, and I got some information from the Alzheimer's Association before I went. We looked at videos, we talked about the materials, and she got an early diagnosis, and literally for 13 years did very, very well on medication.
Yes.
And so, I have to question, if we wouldn't have gotten that, it would have progressed so much faster. We had all these years with Mom. She's now in the later stages of Alzheimer's, which is very difficult. But we all look back at those years and think, that was a gift. It was a gift.
I'm glad that you reached out to us.
Yes, but I knew about you. And
Good,
so how
yes.
can we get everybody to know more about what you do?
It helps.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that it's not just here in the state.
Right.
It's nice to know that we are countrywide. It's nice to know that if you I mean, just to say, up here in Prescott, we do have one of our amazing volunteers that lives here that came from Connecticut. The same services that we offer here, we offer in Connecticut, you know, and it was
Nice.
just like seamless.
Yeah.
And so when she moved here, she was like, you know, I'm completely shocked. I was only like involved in the Connecticut chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and she was like, I'm amazed that it's seamless. So
Nice.
it's nice that everything that we provide, it's countrywide, and you can get like the same amazing services anywhere.
Well, what does the case management involve? What are your case managers?
Anything that our clients need.
Okay.
So we're not physicians.
Right, I know.
So we don't provide the medical.
Right.
And so that's where we partner a lot with other organizations like yours. So it's really catering to the client. Because we are not medical, we don't have any medical staff. It's really looking at what is it that the clients need. So if it's early stage, because we do have early stage coordinators that are that do case management, it's looking at the care partner. In early stage, we define the person with dementia and the care partner, because at that time they're able to make decisions.
Yeah.
So as the disease progresses, the care partner will transition into a caregiver because
Right.
they will be caring for the person with dementia. There's various needs. It could be just something as simple as emotional support to later in the disease needing help with placement. You know,
Right, right.
we do home visits, we do in-office visits. We will support with getting respite care, with trying to find organizations that provide food services. You
Right.
know, it's like I do like to think that we are great at what we do, but we do this, and then there's other organizations that do everything else, and we do the partnership, and we're the
Yeah.
triage. I mean, that's
There you
that's
go. You're the
solid case.
gatekeeper
We're
for
the
them.
gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know what's out there,
No.
and especially with the disease, and it's not just Alzheimer's. It's any chronic disease. It's hard to like reach out to somebody and like, I need help. You
Yeah,
know, and
it
especially
is
with
hard.
this,
Yeah.
because a lot of times with, it's 100% of the time, anybody that has Alzheimer's, their caregiver at some point, they will need 100%,
Yeah.
24 hours
Yeah.
care. It is common that their caregivers are usually their spouses, and it is highly common that their caregiver will pass away before they will,
Yes.
due to the stress, due to depression, due to heart disease, just because they are caregiving
Yeah.
for somebody that has the disease. So it's like we try to support with other services because they're not alone. You know, we want to let them know you're not alone. And it's not just saying that, oh, it's the Alzheimer's Association. It's everybody else that's out there. You know, and we want you to know that there's a social network. But then there's a caveat. So we live in Arizona. Arizona is not a metropolitan state.
No.
Most of our state is rural.
Very rural.
So it's the catch-22. We don't do services in our offices. So in Arizona, we have 3 offices: one in Tucson, one in Phoenix, and one here in
here.
Prescott. Our offices are very small. We go out into the community.
Yeah.
You know, we go to the people, and luckily, most of the other social service organizations, they go out to the people too. It's not a 100% perfect system, but nothing is.
No.
But knowing that there are other organizations out there that are there to provide services is great. It's great to know that here in Arizona, we have phenomenal physicians. We have phenomenal research institutes. It's a detriment that up here in the northern area, there's not a lot of neurologists. They are
Or
mainly-
gerontologists.
Or gerontologists. They are down in the Phoenix Valley. But I can say It is touted throughout our country that if there is a cure or a prevention that is found, it is probably going to be here in Arizona.
There's a lot of research
There's
going
a lot
on.
of research going on.
Yes, and we're really lucky to have that.
We are very lucky.
You know, because I also try to draw on some of the researchers to then present to our professionals, so that our professionals in our northern Arizona area are more informed.
Yes.
And we have the
yes.
latest and greatest, and we know. And we
Yes.
also, just like you said, it takes a village.
It takes a village. It takes a village.
We can't, not one organization can do it by themselves.
No.
It
no.
just doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't happen.
I know.
So,
it's like, oh.
But it's good that we're all together.
So the other part of your title is advocacy.
Is advocacy.
So define what you do for advocacy, because that's a broad term.
It is a very broad term, and it's definitely.
I have it in my title too, so it's okay.
It is interesting because I had no public policy background.
Uh-huh.
So, advocacy in general means to be vocal.
Yes.
In my specific title, I oversee public policy,
Okay.
both federal and state here in Arizona as well as Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely interesting when you live in one state, trying to learn another state's government. It's really interesting. I do have to say Nevada has an interesting state government because their government meets every other year. So they're not in session every year like ours is.
Interesting.
So they move a lot quicker than what we do. And it's not like a detriment, and it's not anything negatively
just
about
different.
It's just different. So federally, Alzheimer's is the least funded chronic disease in our country. We do know that in the top 5 diseases, because Alzheimer's is in the top 5, that its deaths are on the incline, where in the other 4, deaths are on the decline. We do know that the more that our government puts into research funding, all of the other 4 chronic diseases, which heart, most cancers, HIV, AIDS, and stroke, deaths have been on the decline because they have preventions and interventions. Alzheimer's disease is just under $1 billion. In the 2 years that I've been with Alzheimer's Association, we have had almost a double increase in research spending. So that is a blessing. So a lot has come with research. They're really pushing for prevention. So that is good. Things that have not come out federally is looking at diagnosis.
The diagnosis?
The diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because we were really pushing that for 4 years. For 4 years, we had a bill that we were pushing. Most of our representatives, our federal representatives and senators were pushing for it. It just never went to the floor. So it died. It will be reintroduced. So it died in the 113th as well as the 114th Congress. It will be reintroduced. It's called the HOPE Act. But we, I want to say 2 months into it being reintroduced in the 114th congressional session, we had a House majority, and I want to say 4 months into it, we had a Senate. It just never went to the floor.
Yeah, and that's the big deal.
And that's
People
the big
don't
deal.
understand about the bills. It's like if it doesn't go to the floor, it means nothing. And I have to work a lot of that, anything that has to do with aging. So we probably cross paths a little bit.
Yes.
We should talk more.
Yes. So, statewide, and this is how we met,
Yes.
is our Arizona Alzheimer's State Plan.
Yeah.
So we are on the task force together. I am the co-chair of our Arizona Alzheimer's State Task Force. In 2015, we came out with our Arizona Alzheimer's State Plan, which I just think is amazing. We were the 47th state to come out with our state plan. Over 500 community members have been working on this for several years. I do think that our state plan is better than everybody else's, just because I'm partial to Arizona. And I read all of the others. That was one of the tasks that I had to do for the task force. I think that ours is a lot more relatable because we had a whole bunch of community members. It wasn't just a whole bunch of government organizations sitting around a table. We had people from social service agencies. We had government officials. We had just community members from our communities come to the table and say, this is what we need to be looking at for our state. And Arizona is the 4th leading cause of death.
Yes.
We do not address this. We do not talk about this.
I know.
It is the cancer of, you know.
You used to never say the C
never,
word.
you never
now
said
you
the
never
C
say
word.
the A word.
You never say the A word.
I know, and then we lose that ability to inform and educate and get into the early diagnosis.
Exactly.
And it's frustrating.
In the time that I've worked at the Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's is now, Arizona has the 3rd highest projected rate in the country. Nevada is number 2. Do you know what number 1 is?
No.
Alaska. Most people say Florida. So when you base it off of age demographic with the population, Alaska has a higher elderly population than any other country based on the other population. So the 2 service areas that my chapter of the Alzheimer's Association serves is number 2 and 3. And there's 37 staff members total. We're very heavily volunteer based. But it's interesting with our state plan that we have amazing goals, and it's not focused on government organizations doing this. We made sure that it was not a government document that we needed to ensure that our senators and our representatives were holding true and making sure that this happened. We wanted it to be Joan Smith off of the street can say, look, this is impacting my state. What can I do? So this past November, we came out with our call to action plan that targeted 5 audiences, caregivers and persons with dementia, public policy workers, workforce, volunteer organizations, and research and educators. And it was just a list of action steps that those target audiences, target groups could do to obtain any of the goals. And our goals were very simple. One was public awareness. I mean, we talked about other.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about this. Right. I mean, and not that we want to necessarily just randomly have conversations about Alzheimer's disease. I mean, it does kind of hurt my heart when I tell people where I work and then they have to make the silly memory joke, like however, you know.
It's kind of insulting.
It is kind of insulting. Yeah. But in all of the areas of social services that I worked, everybody always has some type of joke that they make. We have a goal to support and sustain people with the disease and their caregivers. We need to ensure that we have research and we disseminate research. We need to make sure that we have a workforce. We need to make sure that we have a dementia capable system. And that seems to be something that people don't understand, the difference between workforce and dementia capable system.
Right.
We, like my organization, your organization, those are workforces. The dementia capable system in general is our organizations working together for the better good, which is for the people with the disease and their caregivers. So with this call to action plan, you as somebody that works in the workforce can look at it and say, oh, my organization can do this. But then also as a caregiver or somebody that, because you have experienced the disease, you also can look at it and say, wait, I can share my story. I can talk to somebody about this. Because you also work for a government organization. Nowhere in it does it, even with the public policy, does it state ever for a public policy member, any of our government officials, you need to go out and write a bill. You need to go out and do this, because in general, it should be organic that somebody will do this, because it's affecting everybody. Even if it hasn't been in your life yet, it will touch you eventually. But we want, our calls to action are very simple. Post about it, talk about it, educate yourself. Don't miss an opportunity to integrate Alzheimer's or dementia, because it's a 4th leading cause of death now. Yeah. What happens next year or the year after, when it's the 3rd, when it's the 2nd, when it's the 1st, when it's it's not in our backyards. It's inside our houses.
And you know, I love it too because Arizona does have a movement towards dementia-friendly communities. And we're going to have a meeting here coming up real soon about that.
Are you going?
Yes, are you going?
Yes, I am.
Good. I'll see you. Good.
It's next week, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is next week.
Yes.
So I'll be there. We can talk more about
Yes.
that. But I'm really excited about that movement starting.
Yes.
Because dementia-friendly communities is something that I wish we would have had for my mother.
Yes.
You know, so that there was a safe place for her to walk and a safe place for her to be, that people aren't going to judge her or look at her. You know, she had an incident in a store and it was horrible. You know, the staff didn't treat her well. You know, we asked them to, you know, the caregiver was a male that was caring for my mother at home while my sister was working, and she never came out of the bathroom. And he said, you have to go in there. And the lady came out, oh, she's fine. Well, did you see her? No, she's in the booth. He goes, you need to see her. I mean, we had to go through this whole DIA thing. You know, so dementia-friendly communities, I think, is a big step.
I do too.
Towards that action plan. And the action plan is simple. It's very good. You know, I've read through it. I've only, you know, I can't claim any involvement. I just joined the group right as you were completing and finishing that plan. But it is for everybody to be involved, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Yes. Yes.
That is the beauty of it. And although we're government funded, we are a nonprofit.
Yes. Yes.
And so nonprofits, obviously, you know, and I think training is also a big deal. I can remember, you know, I've been in the business 26 years, going to SNFs and skilled nursing facilities and training the staff, and they'd say, oh, well, that Joey, she remembers what a Sunday is, but that's kind of, you know, selective memory. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's talk about what happens to the memory with somebody with Alzheimer's. It's not selective.
No.
It's where the disease is, where the
No.
disease is attacking. And if she remembers what a Sunday is, celebrate it.
Exactly.
Celebrate
Exactly. Something
Yeah.
I was talking to some of my program staff yesterday, and because one of my program staff, she has a client who is getting ready to place his mother.
That's a hard thing to
It
do.
is. It's so hard.
hard.
And she was saying, you know, because one thing that we do, like, we have tons and tons of resources, and there's tons and tons of assisted livings, there's tons and tons of memory units, and we don't endorse, but we refer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we provide the resources. And I was telling my family care consultant, I was like, why don't you tell your client that you will go with him
a good
to
idea.
numerous assisted living to look at their memory units, because you know what is good and what isn't. And she was like, well, what is one thing that you would want if you were going to place like your family member? And this is my staff member asking me. And I was like, one thing that I would want in a memory unit is for there not to be a time schedule. And this is something that is fairly
Go with the
common.
flow.
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow.
Because the thing is, like in life, I'm not on a time schedule. I would hate, and the thing is, I know when night and day is. Somebody with dementia
Doesn't care.
They don't.
Well,
And-
speaking of time constraints, we have one.
Oh, really?
I know. We could go on forever. We
could
got to
go
have you back, and we'll
on.
talk some more.
That's totally fine.
So, I know that's the only part. James Fitzpatrick, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
joining us
You're
today
welcome.
on
Thank
Senior
you.
Moment. Thank you for joining us on Senior Moment, Successful Aging. I'm Mary Beals-Luedtka. Until next time.